When I was 14, I was sexually assaulted in my school. I'd actually been on a lot of medications. I was pretty sick at the time, and I'd passed out in the school hallway. And a friend of a friend had seen me there. And when I woke up, it was very evident my bra strap was undone, part of my pants was undone, and the friend of my friend was still sitting there with me. And his response at the time was, strangely, "It looks like your bra is undone." To me, that was peculiar, and I didn't know why he would say that. And then later, upon running into my friend and him reflecting and saying, you know, "I want you to stay close by. I don't want you to leave my sight for a little while," something started to register. I kind of connected the dots and was able to say, oh, okay, something isn't right here. So in the time between my assault and my decision to report it, there was a lot of confusion indeed, and there was a lot of hesitance about what the appropriate course of action really should be. My initial response was to just carry on, to have said nothing to anybody, to have consulted with my friend, but not to speak up very much. I did confide in another female friend at the time, and she reflected by saying, like, "This sounds familiar." A friend of hers had gone through a similar experience with the same person who had assaulted me. At that point, I talked to the friend of the friend, and she said, in fact, that was the case, and she knew she wasn't alone because she had seen his behavior around others, reflecting similar habits and patterns that were extremely questionable and very inappropriate. I was convinced the right thing, in fact, to do was to talk with somebody I trusted, somebody who I could confide in, and that happened to be my math teacher at the school. And then I started the process of, going through court procedures. Charges were laid, and they had to be laid once I spoke with an authority at the school. My mom was about the only real support I had at that time. A lot of friends didn't really know how to interact with me anymore. So after that, the court trial started, and that was challenging. I don't remember a lot of actually being in court. I think that's one of the things that kind of happened is my brain decided to sort of let go of a lot of what happened there. It was pretty traumatizing. I do remember at one point being asked a lot of very personal questions and things like, what were you wearing? Things like, did you do anything to provoke this? Those definitely came up. And unashamedly too, they weren't the sort of questions that came up with, tact. At one point I was asked in court, and this is the hardest thing that I remember happening, that I would have to look at and identify the perpetrator of assault. My abuser was in the courtroom, and I was asked to please identify him, at which point I had to look directly at him, point at him, say his name. That was the hardest part. My abuser was given a bit of a slap on the wrist of some community service, and that was kind of standard at the time. The court proceedings, they were not as accommodating as I was maybe led to believe. There was a lot of information about how friendly law enforcement would be, how they would kind of help you through and see you through, but the fact of the matter was that a lot of people within that system were not equipped with appropriate resources to handle not only any survivor, but a very young survivor. There was a lot of assumption that as a young person, I might not know what I was talking about, or that as a woman, I might have done something to have provoked an attack. So I guess I kind of came out of that feeling pretty disappointed, pretty let down. And after that, I continued to live my life as I did, slowly coming to the realization about 10 years later that I really needed support. I kind of decided, maybe what I should do is look into this a little bit further. Maybe I can be accountable to myself and really take some self-care steps and approach Sacha. And it was a really good choice. I think for survivors going through the court process, a very supportive and hopefully wise choice would be to, confide in a form of support that will best encourage you personally. If your needs are to speak with somebody, I would absolutely encourage them to phone Sacha or phone a crisis line. I would absolutely encourage them to do what they need to do in order to feel that they can best cope with the experiences that they're having through that system.